One of the big advantages of having some in-person people is to be able to sing in rounds. It's awfully hard to do that online, to say the least. So yesterday I pulled into the parking lot of Glen Haven Chapel for Melissa Wynn's memorial service, and I noticed that Pamela and Carl drove up and parked next to me. Pamela's been a member of MSUS for several years. She started attending MSUS when she was in a transitional time in her life. She was going through the process of divorce and moved into a new home in St. Michael. And then COVID hit, as did health issues and work pressures. And we all know what life felt like during those years. It is not uncommon for newcomers and even old-timers to be part of the congregation for both short and long periods of time and then not be seen. Some choose to spend their Sunday mornings elsewhere, and that they find that their commitments shift. But Pamela came and stayed. Actually, I think that might be too easy of a phrase. I would say Pamela came and chose to belong. She came intentionally, seeking community and connection. And over the years, I have seen her invest in that connection. She volunteered for hospitality at Steve's memorial service, probably not even knowing him at all. She's led leadership trainings open to all. She's attended music in the park this summer when Delphi Jazz played, joined small groups, and brought an honesty and a vulnerability to her relationship with MSUS that shows her desire to lean in. So I guess I shouldn't have been surprised when I saw her pull into the parking lot yesterday, not really knowing how close she was with Mel or not. It's consistent with my knowing of her. And yet with this Sunday's topic, the spiritual practice of belonging on my mind, I decided to check in with Pamela. So I walked over to the back of the pews as we were waiting, and I asked her a few questions. She was clear that she decided to join this congregation because she wanted community. And with Janice Sankot sitting beside her, the first time I've seen Janice in person since we moved stuff into her basement quite some time ago, Pamela was sure to note that Janice's intentional welcome made an impact on her. When we were worshiping in person at our Oakley Drive building, Janice was on the Sunday services team, and she volunteered to put herself inside the front doors to be a greeter. This single task, done consistently over time, proved to be a powerful way to welcome newcomers and to invite them into a sense of belonging. Pamela recalled being greeted by Janice on her first Sunday, and then she noted that she was remembered as she walked in the doors on the second Sunday. Linda and I joined a UU church to have community as well. We were new to town, having moved from San Francisco. We knew we wanted to have a family, and as a lesbian couple with no legal protections, we were conscious of the fact that if you know what hits the fan, we wanted community. We wanted community to know us and to hold us and to support us. When I reflect on the core of why we sought out a church community, which was part of her upbringing but not part of mine, I think it's because we knew we didn't want to go it alone. We were relatively young, shy of 30, and we didn't have family in town. We had a lot of friends, but they were peers, and quite honestly, they were about as clueless about life as we were. So we joined First Universalist in Minneapolis, and later we moved to St. Paul and joined Unity Church Unitarian. During those formative years of our young kids' lives, Unity was our church home and a central force in parenting and in the life of our family. We went to church religiously. I don't know why I love saying that so much, but it amuses me, but it fits. We went to church religiously. Our kids were in church plays, coming of age, where youth grapple with their own beliefs and values. They participated in OWL our whole lives, the sexuality class, which gives them factual information and time to talk through their own sense of relationships, mutual care, communication, and values. Linda and I both served in a number of different ways. As I said, church was central in our lives. We chose to say yes, even when it was uncomfortable. We spoke up when familiarity among congregants resulted in being excluded. I'm sure some of you have been there when the inside group knows so well, they're just not really filling newcomers in on what's going on. We spoke up when we felt, when assumed heterosexism popped up in conversation and in curriculum and in communications. Only in hindsight can I say that by seeing the community as ours, we took responsibility to keep it going and to make it better. And for us, that meant to be more inclusive. Belonging is the theme for this month. Belonging goes further than connecting or joining. I believe belonging has a depth. It has a weight to it, like an anchor. It has a presence of assuredness even when things get rocky with ourselves or that to which we belong. Author Brene Brown, who was one of my primary writers as I was in relationship with this theme over the week, says true belonging, it's not something you negotiate externally. It's what you carry in your heart. It's finding the sacredness in being part of something. Let me repeat that. True belonging is not something you negotiate externally. It's something you carry in your heart. It's finding the sacredness in being part of something. To truly have a sense of belonging, one must first have a sense of self. Brown says that true belonging is the spiritual practice of believing in and belonging to yourself so deeply that you can share your most authentic self with the world and find sacredness in both being a part of something and in being alone. She said, true belonging doesn't require to change who you are. It requires you to be who you are. She likes to differentiate between belonging and fitting in. Fitting in, people often sacrifice parts of themselves to fit in. True belonging only happens when we present our authentic, imperfect selves to the world. Our sense of belonging can never be greater than our sense of self-acceptance. That's why the opening reading from today's service continuously is this broad embrace for me. It names the value of our differences, our uniqueness, and it blesses them as holy. Come into this place which we make holy by our presence. Come in with your vulnerabilities and your strengths, your fears and anxieties, your loves and hopes, for here you need not hide nor pretend nor be anything other than who you are and who you are called to be. Together, we make this a holy place. Together, we point toward the sacred and the holy. We join in song, ritual, generosity, welcome, sharing, seeking, and meaning-making. I know I have had countless times when my interior sense of self falters and I lose my own sense of self. For me, this happens when I'm tired or hurt, ungrounded, angry, embarrassed, hungry, you name it. It's amazing how familiar that cloudy territory of self-doubt and disconnection can enter into my being. I know from talking to many of you, I am not alone. Loneliness and self-criticism, struggling with meaning and self-worth are all part of this human experience. Choosing to be a part of a congregation like this one can be a powerful antidote to those emotions and self-perception that get in the way of belonging. The joys and sorrows as part of our Sunday worship, where we all have the opportunity to share what's in our hearts and what's happening in our lives and of all of those we love, provides a weekly reminder that we are not alone in our pain and in our joy. Mitch Albom, many of you may know him. He wrote the book Tuesday with Morrie, which was a very popular book. He tells this story about a little wave bobbing along in the ocean, having a grand old time, and he says they're enjoying the wind and the fresh air until they notice the crashing against the shore. My God, this is terrible, the wave says. Look what's going to happen to me. The first wave says, "You don't understand. We're all going to crash. All going to crash. All of us waves are going to be nothing. Isn't this terrible?" And the second wave says, "No, you don't understand. You're not a wave. You're part of the ocean." Week after week, we come to understand deep in our being the universality of our experiences. They don't make what's happening in our lives any less personal and painful and beautiful, but they help frame them in the larger story of the very human life we all share. Belonging is understanding we are part of the ocean, an ocean that exists through time. For this congregation, the ocean includes the dreams of our founders, those who have died, those who've been born and blessed, years of potlucks and flower communions and memorial services, merging of the waters, music and singing, watching little ones grow into adulthood, and holding each other in times of grief and joy. Faith communities are no different than others. They're as imperfect and beautiful as each of us. These past few years, we've been through a lot together. We've been through COVID, changes in our country, elections, uprisings, deep acknowledgement of the threat of global warming. We've experienced tremendous change as a congregation through selling our building and packing up and moving out, going virtual for several years, and then landing here in the middle school for now as we assess what's next in terms of our church home. We've lost loved ones to death, and their decision to leave the congregation intentionally or simply by having the connection with her, and it was no longer part of the core. And individually, we've all had challenges, since that is part of our human condition. Brene Brown often couples the word belonging with true belonging. And she says true belonging isn't passive. It's not the belonging that comes with just joining a group. It's not fitting in or pretending or selling out because it's safer. It's a practice that requires us to be vulnerable, get uncomfortable, and learn how to be present with people without sacrificing who we are. We want true belonging, but it takes tremendous courage to knowingly walk into hard moments. I am constantly reminded of the courage it takes to deliberately belong. I think of this on a more micro level with friendship and partnerships. To love someone as a friend or a spouse or a child means to commit to true belonging, to come fully as one's own self and to let go, to dive in. As I mentioned, I went to Melissa's service yesterday. I also went to one for Rob Eller Isaacs, who was the minister at Unity Church Unitarian, where we raised our kids. And throughout both services, we laughed and we sighed and we cried and we felt emotions well up as music pulled on our hearts in a way that words alone cannot do. Yesterday, I experienced two very different faith communities come together for a shared moment of goodbye, celebration, grief, and acceptance of how one person's life can be impacted by so many and touch so many. There is a profound sacredness to the life that we are given, and I was aware of that. I was aware that it was through belonging that both of these dear beloveds came into my life. When someone belongs to a UU congregation like ours, you're reminded not just of your own worthiness and sacredness, or that of the community that it commits itself to the shared values of mindful interdependence, authentic curiosity, and courageous love, but we're also drawn into that wider ocean, the world beyond our walls. During the pandemic, the Unitarian Universalist president, Susan Frederick Gray, created a number of videos periodically for use in services and on social media. It was a way for her to communicate with the larger UU community. One time she said, "A theology of interdependence is the true heart of our faith. Our work for justice is a faithful response to that theology." This speaks to that idea of belonging. She referred to Dr. Martin Luther King Jr.'s letter from the Birmingham jail where he wrote, "We are caught in an inescapable network of mutuality, tied in a single garment of destiny. Whatever affects one directly affects all indirectly." UU congregations are intentionally communities of connection and care, and it is here that our theology of interdependence urges us to work for justice across many arenas, including environmental and racial and LGBTQ justice. Belonging includes a connection within and among, and among and beyond. It's like those rings of loving kindness when you do that prayer, may I be well, may you be well, may we be well. Belonging, it takes effort. It is not a passive state. We're in a spiritual crisis, says Brown. The key to building true belonging, to building a true belonging practice is making, my goodness, I'm going to begin that again. The key to building a true belonging practice is maintaining our belief in an inextricable human condition. That connection, the spirit that flows between us and every other human in the world, is not something that can be broken. However, our belief in connection is constantly tested and repeatedly severed. When our belief that there's something greater than us, something rooted in love and compassion breaks, it's at that time that we're more likely to retreat to our bunkers, to hate from afar, to tolerate BS, she uses other words, and to dehumanize others. I know that my life has been enriched by belonging to this faith and the congregations I've been part of. The world sure is full of distractions that keep us away from our centeredness rooted in love, that keep us away from compassion and a call for justice. Our inner landscapes rely on the nourishment of relationships and communities rich with wisdom and care and joy and love, calling us forward, calling us to grow and love and stay engaged in this world. Canadian-American philosopher Patricia Churchland put it beautifully when she said, "We long to belong, and belonging and caring anchors our sense of place in the universe." May this place be such an anchor, and may you continue to see your sense of belonging in this congregation as a spiritual practice worthy of your love and commitment. And may true belonging be something you carry in your heart, finding the sacredness in being part of something greater than yourself. I'm trying to see how we're doing on time right here. I think we have a few minutes. I'm curious about folks, whether there are ways that you have felt like belonging to this community has been like a spiritual practice for you. You know, that's something that you had to do intentionally, deliberately, dig deep for at times. I'm wondering if anybody has any stories to share about belonging as a spiritual practice.
Marilyn. And what has helped to ground me has been the church book club that meets on Sunday nights. It started out at a nursing home with Peter Treefeathen. It was a delight to meet him and experience his views on things and get to know the people that were in that book club. We now meet in people's homes, and the books we choose, like next month it's Frankenstein. It's like it's something that expands and deepens my faith.
Wonderful, thank you. We do have 2 book groups that meet regularly, and there's news. We'll have the updates in the Thursday update, but there's a woman identified book group, and then there's the Sunday night book group. So if folks are interested in that, let me know. Jamie, did you have your hand up?
I'm Jamie. I've been a member since 2005, but I've been a Unitarian since the early 80s. And we were and still are members of First Unitarian Society in Minneapolis, and went there for many years. And then we moved up here. When we started coming here, I really did not have a sense of community prior to this. And this is where I discovered what it's like to be a member of a community. And that has happened not only because of the attitude we have here, the practices we have here at church, of really trying to welcome people and take care of one another. I also developed my sense of spirituality here, which I felt like I didn't know how to access that. And that was largely through attending Covenant Group. And I also felt like the church appreciated and utilized my skills and gifts. And I do that through singing in the choir, but also some of the committees I've been asked to be on. And so it feels like a real validation of me.
Thank you, Jamie.
Thank you all.
Linda, is there anybody online?
Yes, we have Polly. Go ahead, Polly.
Thank you. I'm Polly. When me and Kathleen were searching for a church, I guess, we weren't really searching for a church, we were sensing for belonging, and quickly found that in MSUS. But that's deepened over the years, so that I now define my spirituality as music. And that's where I gain that energy, and I feel something part of bigger than myself. And through both the concert band and definitely Delphi, I get that sense of being an important part of something, like I said, bigger than myself, that makes things great. When we're sitting there playing in Bruce's basement, it's just, sometimes it's magical, and I absolutely love that. That's it.
Thank you, Polly. And Beth. We'll end with Beth.
Yeah, I'm Beth. I was thinking as different people were talking, belonging is, not maybe an action word, but it has to be an action in your life. I was a member of MSUS for many years, and the life I lived in the way I came to MSUS was very much reclusive, and I was happy to be with everyone and loved hearing the messages and loved hearing conversation, but was always just there listening and not being a part of it. And it was, I've told some people, it was at Janice's husband, and I'm forgetting
Jerry.
his name now,
Jerry.
Jerry's memorial, when Ed Burek got up and gave one of the eulogies, and just listening to stories about Jerry, I thought, gosh, I didn't know this person. I just don't connect with people, and it bothered me so. I made a decision. I decided you can't just keep being passive. You have to reach out. You have to learn. Anyway, So belonging, I thought it was great those first years, you know, getting to know people, but I wasn't really getting to know people. And it wasn't until I started being more active that belonging really flourished.
Thank you, Beth. And Beth hosted Third Thursday last week in her house, so thank you for that hospitality. Byron, did you have something to say, jumping up and
Yes.
down in the back?
Very, very short.
Okay,
I am absolutely not a spiritual person. But this has become my village. That's the word that describes my relationship with this group of people. I don't get along with everybody in the village all the time. It's a functional village. It's like any other village.
exactly.
But it's my village.
Thank
Until you kick me out or I wander off. It's my village.
Thank you, Byron. Our closing hymn is hymn 1008, When Our Hearts Are in a Holy Place. Just like before, we'll have the hymn leaders up here. People at home will be muted and can sing along. Those of us here, please rise in body and spirit and wear a mask if you're able to, and the words will be on the screen.